Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. In an apparent policy U-turn, US President Donald Trump indicated on Monday night that Washington would send defensive weapons to Ukraine following discussions with President Zelenskyy. Our Ukraine correspondent Oz Chatterjee has the latest.
Late on Monday, the White House signaled that it would be U-turning in its policy of preventing further shipments of defensive weapons being sent to Ukraine, with Donald Trump announcing that he was very unhappy with Putin in the last phone conversation the two presidents had together. Now, President Zelenskyy gave his statement on Monday night in his nightly address. He said that there were further discussions ongoing between Kyiv and Washington about sending these missiles, particularly Patriot battery missiles, which Ukraine needs to defend itself from fast-moving Russian cruise and ballistic missiles. Let's take a quick listen to what Zelenskyy said on Monday night in his address.
Була дуже детальна розмова щодо дронів.
We must significantly increase the use of all types of drones that assist on the front lines, both to repel Russian assaults and to support our active operations. Drones and technological solutions are crucial here, and there will be more. I am grateful to everyone working in this area on necessary technologies. We are continuing our efforts to counter airstrikes as well. Everything concerning air defense, systems, missiles, and drone-based solutions is now our top priority. We're also preparing new agreements with partners and expect to formalize them in the coming weeks.
Later on Monday night, Trump signaled that following his phone conversations with President Zelenskyy, Washington would now be sending defensive weapons to Ukraine. Let's take a listen to what the US president had to say.
On Ukraine, Mr. President, are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons, primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. It's very sad. So many people are dying in that mess.
Well, the Department of Defense later confirmed Trump's statement that they would be sending new shipments of defensive weapons to Ukraine. No real clarity on if this will be a new package announced by the Trump administration. So really the policy is what matters, not the announcement. We've been here before with Trump statements that aren't later borne out in policy. But for one thing, the Ukrainians will be very, very pleased with the diplomacy that they've managed to conduct over the last couple of weeks with regards to this issue, and they will be hoping that the White House follows through with this promise of a new delivery of defensive weapons. Now, this comes following more Russian attacks on Ukraine, 9 people killed and 81 injured overnight. So the urgency for those weapons, particularly air defenses, is increasing as Russia continues to escalate its aerial bombardment of Ukraine. It's Oz Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Dozens of civilians and soldiers have been killed in recent weeks during heavy Russian airstrikes on Ukrainian cities. One of the victims was a skilled F-16 pilot, Maxim Ustemenko, who died during his mission. A deputy commander in the Ukrainian Air Force has now said that without more air defense systems, Kyiv will have to use risky tactics more often on the battlefield, which could result in significant losses among both the military and civilian population. Warnings like these from Ukrainian commanders come just days after the Pentagon said it would pause some arms deliveries that Ukraine critically needs to protect its cities.
All must understand that there is no such thing as enough weapons. Therefore, if we cannot use the missiles because we do not get them, then it will be very difficult. A flight to perform a military task is a risk itself, while firing a cannon is a triple risk. But we take into consideration other things too. If we do not shoot down a Shahed drone and it falls on a settlement, on a building, and people die, what should we choose? Of course, we choose to destroy air targets despite how difficult and risky it is. We think of all scenarios to secure safety while using cannons. Maxim was the one to develop instructions on how to use a cannon, but on that particular day, the situation in the air was extremely difficult. In the airspace, there were a lot of Shahed drones. Part of Ukraine on the left side of Dnipro River was full of them, and it was very difficult to fully monitor the situation in the air.
Ukraine's ambassador to the US, Oksana Markarova, is said to be replaced following a decision from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, confirmed by sources in the president's office on Tuesday. Oksana Markarova, who has served as Ukraine's ambassador to the US since April 2021, played a pivotal role in securing US military and financial support during the early stages of Russia's full-scale invasion. However, her tenure was called into question earlier this week when reports surfaced that Zelenskyy and US President Donald Trump discussed the possibility of a change in leadership at the embassy during a recent phone call. This alleged reshuffle comes at a time of heightened tension between Kyiv and Washington, especially following the US Defense Department's recent pause on key weapon shipments, including Patriot missiles and precision-guided munitions. While in Washington, D.C., Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he has nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. The U.S. president said he was not expecting the gesture and added it is very meaningful, particularly because it is coming from Netanyahu.
The president has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country, in one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, baby.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. It's a great honor.
According to French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot, Europe is preparing to impose the toughest sanctions yet on Russia. The French official said the additional measures will target financial players in Russia and those abroad who allow the country to evade the current sanctions regime.
Following French proposals, Europe is preparing to impose the toughest sanctions we have seen in 3 years, which will drain the resources that allow Vladimir Putin to continue his war. Well, if we can call it that, since Vladimir Putin is no longer making any progress on the front line and is now content to rain missiles and drones down on residential areas, causing huge numbers of civilian casualties. All this has to stop, and by imposing sanctions that target not only oil revenues, but also Russian financial players or financial players in other countries that allow Russia to evade our sanctions, we intend to make him comply.
Romania's new government, led by Prime Minister Ilie Bolojan, is facing tough decisions as it pushes through austerity measures to avoid a financial collapse. With one of the highest budget deficits in the EU, the country is under intense pressure from both Brussels and credit rating agencies.
Romania is grappling with a serious fiscal crisis, and the government is moving quickly to avert a financial disaster. The country's budget deficit has reached nearly 9% of its GDP, the highest in the European Union, triggering warnings from the European Commission. As part of its plan to restore fiscal order, Romania is imposing a series of painful austerity measures that include tax hikes, spending cuts, and reforms to public sector wages and pensions. The new measures are set to come into force in August, with the second phase starting in January 2026. However, these changes are expected to take a toll on economic growth and the government's popularity, with many anticipating protests and public backlash. Romania has a tight deadline to meet EU budgetary requirements by October 15th this year.
Moldovan President Sandu is visiting Poland. During her stay, Sandu met with her Polish counterpart, Andrzej Duda. On Tuesday morning, Sandu paid a visit to the Pulaski Foundation, a leading Polish think tank that specializes in foreign policy and international security. The focus of Sandu's visit to Warsaw is Moldova's path toward a European Union membership, which also includes the challenges posed by Russia's hybrid threats to the country. During her stay in Poland, Sandu met with the Polish President Andrzej Duda at the Presidential Palace in Warsaw, and she is set to meet Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk at his office. Let's not fool ourselves into thinking that Moldova or other countries in this particular corner of Europe are not also on Russia's menu, says Velina Chakarova, founder of Face Geopolitical Consultancy. In an exclusive interview for TVP World, she explains how Russia's ambitions go way beyond Ukraine.
Let's not fool ourselves to think that Moldova or other countries in this particular corner of Europe, countries like Georgia, for example, are are also not on Russia's menu. Now, the current agenda of Russia is more about the hybrid forms of warfare, the non-kinetic part of warfare, starting with energy security, with the looming energy shortfalls due to Gazprom's transit reduction.
Today is the first day of the trial of the man who shot Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico in May of last year. The suspect is accused of terrorism and faces a lifelong sentence.
The attack took place following a special government session in Handlowa on May 15, 2024. After Fico left the meeting, he greeted a crowd of supporters in front of the building when shots were fired. 4 bullets hit the Slovakian Prime Minister, who was then promptly transported to the nearest hospital. The shooter was identified as Juraj C., a 72-year-old rider. He was apprehended on the spot and quickly confessed to the shooting, while also admitting that he didn't act alone. The shooter said that his actions were motivated by his opposition to the Fico government's decisions. Although at first the Slovakian Attorney General accused the shooter of attempted premeditated murder, the charges were quickly changed to terrorism.
Poland's Warsaw Moldovan Airport and the Irish low-cost carrier Ryionaire have announced their newly signed cooperation deal. The airline is set to invest almost €350 million into the facility. The deal aims to triple Ryanaire's clients and significantly expand the smaller of Warsaw's 2 airports. With the deadline set for September 2027, the objectives for Moldovan Airport are to set up 4 new check-in desks and 4 additional aircraft standby spots. These are the requirements for Ryanair to expand its European base that would allow the airline to set up 25 new routes. Following the signing of the agreement, Ryanair CEO said the deal would make Modlin the fastest-growing airport in Poland. Together, the carrier and the airport plan to create some 600 new jobs. Intense storms are rolling through Poland. 4 people have already been reported injured in the Subcarpathian region.
On Monday, in the southeastern Polish region, local firefighter brigades were forced to intervene close to 1,200 times. The storms pose a threat as they are powerful enough to knock down trees that can damage power lines, roof structures, and block roads. The risk of flooding is also increased due to the intensified rainfall. One of the injured people was admitted to a hospital after a tree fell on the roof of their home, causing the person to suffer a head injury. Another one was electrocuted after a tree fell onto power lines. These storms are currently battering the central and eastern region of Europe. Slovakian authorities have called a state of emergency due to the bad weather.
Northeastern Spain is currently suffering from a strong wildfire which has caused widespread destruction. Over 300 firefighters have so far been deployed to combat the blaze. On Monday, the Catalonia region was hit by a wildfire which started near the municipality of Pol, burning over 2,000 hectares overnight. Additional strong winds exacerbated the fire, causing it to spread further to the town of Alfara de Carle, prompting the evacuation of 50 residents. Currently, Spain's military emergency unit and firefighters are stabilizing the fires. Polish tennis superstar Iga Świątek is off to the Wimbledon quarterfinal following an impressive 6-4, 6-1 victory over Danish 23rd seed Clara Tauson on Monday.
Despite a worrying number of double faults on Świątek's side, she managed to secure her win in a little over an hour. The beginning was pretty shaky with the double faults, but I managed to play solid. I'm not sure if Clara was feeling that well. She said she didn't sleep well, and I hope she has a good recovery, Świątek told the crowd after the match. Iga will face Russia's Lyudmila Samsonova on Wednesday to battle it out for a place in the tournament's semi-finals.
And on that note, we conclude Midday Report here on TVP World. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more on our channel. Goodbye.